All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel. Just doing what I do. No singing today. Talking about real music and doing it in real time for a few real people out here, just like you and just like me. Yeah, I apologize for those vocals, but compared to compared to some of the people who continue to persist out there on the road. Um, Daryl Hall. I'm not going to, I should do a video about Daryl Hall. All right. Instead, I'm going to talk about Daryl Hannah. So I'll have to save the Daryl Hall video for another time. But Daryl Hannah says that the Trump administration tried to mess with Neil Young's U.S. citizenship application. Okay. Um, as far as I can tell, Neil's application went through. So we're subjected via the iHeart Radio Media Industrial Complex, which basically sends all of these stories out to their web of stations, which is a pretty extensive web. I mean, we hear a lot about oligarchy. We don't hear too much about radio monopolies, though, do we? Anyway, so did they mess with Neil's application? Daryl Hannah, who is surprisingly still married to Neil Young. Just saying, I don't understand the attraction originally, but Daryl has kind of caught up with Neil a little bit, and you'd have to see pictures to see what I'm actually referring to. Neil Young applied to become a U.S. citizen back in 2019. Hannah telling the BBC they tried every trick in the book to mess him up and made him come back to be re-interviewed and interviewed again. It's ridiculous because he's been living in America and paying taxes here since he was in his 20s. So essentially, he's been an illegal since he was in his 20s. In other words, they didn't kick him out when he was illegal. Young, who was born in Canada, eventually became a citizen in 2020. Who was president in 2020? Let me think about it. Donald Trump was president in 2020. Holy crap, Batman. Can you believe that? Donald Trump let Neil Young become a citizen in 2020. Good for him. So, with all this stuff right now about this guy from El Salvador who was supposedly mistakenly deported, even though he's a resident of El Salvador. He's not a resident of the United States. And he hung out with, what is it, MS-13, whatever it's called. Really nice folks, by the way. You should check out their profile on Facebook. It's really good. I'm just kidding. So with all of this stuff coming out and all this sympathy, and there are lawyers making speeches, my client from Maryland. Really? He was born in Maryland? You know, Neil Young wasn't born in the United States, and that guy wasn't born in Maryland. He's a Marylander. No, he's not. Just, folks, do you ever feel like it's now becoming almost comical? Because the lies aren't even all that convincing. The lies, though, are, like I said, this story goes out to everybody. And so everybody this morning had their talking points about how this guy shouldn't have been deported. Everyone else, though, we're not going to question those guys. But there's one guy who maybe wasn't quite as violent and repulsive as the other guys. And he's a father, right? Because, that makes everybody cool. As long as you're a father, because then you can be a dad, you can be a loving father. And he might have a daughter, and you're going to rip him away from the daughter? That's just criminal. How can we do that? Because families are really important. And why would you do that? Well, he probably did some really bad things. People who are fathers do really bad things all the time, sometimes to their own children. But we need sympathy here. And so these stories go out, and this is timed on the classic rock radio station 93.9. You can see all of their stories if you go to their website. And if you go to other classic rock radio station websites, you'll see almost the same stories. They go out to everybody. Just pick your so-called favorite, right? If you have a favorite classic rock station, just pick one that's in your area, even if you don't listen to it, and you'll see the same stories. What other stories do they have here? Todd Rundgren announces a tour. Cool, man. Todd Rundgren. His politics are pretty close to Neil Young's politics. Sting praises beautiful adolescence cover of Fragile. So somebody's doing Sting songs, and Sting likes it. Of course. Like his ego wouldn't say, hey, of course you have to cover my songs. Elton John scores 22nd top 10 U.S. album with Who Believes in Angels. Wow. Elton getting spiritual. Good for him, man. Wonder how many units he had to sell to get into the top 10. Anyway, those are some of the stories that you're forced to read via the classic rock. There's more of them. They're just, again, every day as I document the end of the classic rock era is technically a slow day in the world of classic rock. Anyway, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer recently expressed fear that he may not be let back into the country if he says anything bad about Trump on his upcoming European tour. Okay, so he's telegraphing to everybody that he's going to say bad things about Trump over in Europe. Why is that even a good thing to do at this stage? We know you don't like Trump, but you're telegraphing the fact that you're going to say bad things about him. And I guarantee you, Trump will let you back into the country. Anyway, Daryl Hannah, who directed the new Neil Young documentary called Coastal, doesn't really think her husband is in much danger. But it's out there. The perception of all this stuff is that Trump is just going to start rounding up random people. And people who maybe are here not on the best terms, but are, working and so forth. And he's going to go after them first. If you listened to what he had to say early on, like last year when he was running for president, he said that he was going to go after the criminals. Now, it's already criminal to enter a country when you're not legally authorized to do so. You're a criminal at that point. I don't understand why just people like grade schoolers, like elementary school kids, if you told them, hey, there's a law that says you can't do this, but a whole bunch of people are doing it, thus they're breaking the law. Do you understand that? And most little kids would say, yeah, I get that. But apparently adults don't get it. Adults don't see the problem with breaking laws. But Trump was actually saying he wanted to go after the people who were doing really bad things while they're not supposed to be here. Okay, so it's almost like it's a double crime, but the most important stuff is the violent stuff, and those are the people they're going after. They're not going after Neil Young. Besides, Neil Young was christened back in 2020 as a U.S. citizen, or induced. We'll use the Justin Hayward term. He was induced as a U.S. citizen in 2020. Donald Trump was the president when that happened. I don't think Donald Trump is going to go after Neil Young. I think these people are so paranoid, and they've got to put it out there for their legions of fellow believers in this religion. And it just becomes pathetic. Someone commented, hey, can you just play the music? Can you just shut up and play the hits or whatever stuff you want to play? I mean, I don't know. He goes to the oligarchy rally, and no, I'm not going to do the Bernie. That's a one-off, I think. Although it could happen again. We'll see if there are any additional, fighting the oligarchy rallies, and there probably will be. It's probably going to be a franchise, and I'm sure AOC will be there. The usual people are going to go. And then I hate to say it, these old, bitter, somewhat washed up people are going to show up, and they're going to yell That's your legacy at the end of your life. You know, go start a homeless shelter or something. You want to be part of the solution, do something to help. Yeah, you can still hate Trump, right? But instead of just throwing shade at Trump, why don't you do something? You've got lots of money. Oh, Neil Young does all kinds of charitable things, Dave. I'll get that. I'll get somebody will come back with a link about Neil Young feeds the homeless in San Francisco or something. Great. Okay. But why not just have that be your focus rather than just tearing down someone else or something else constantly? Like that's going to be your way to monetize your anger because a bunch of people are going to come along and say, I agree with that. So I'm going to go attend the Neil Young concert. He's the only one that's fighting the oligarchy. All right. Well, technically, the working class in the country, they're not the oligarchy. These are the people that showed up because they wanted something different. They didn't want the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually caused more inflation. Just like it's always opposite day with the names of these things. It's the inflation. No, it's not. It's the Inflation Increasing Act. That's what it truly is. But nobody's going to tell you that. They're going to just talk about tariffs, 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 tariffs. You know, the price of tomatoes might go up. You know what we need to do in America? We need to start making stuff again. That's what we need to do. Cars, tomatoes, whatever it is. We need to make stuff here in the United States. They were saying, prior to the Super Bowl that the cost of your guacamole was going to go up. Remember that? Chuck Schumer is out there telling everybody how much more your Super Bowl is. I mean, we're in the United States, folks. I mean, the fact that people would worry about how much their halftime show is going to cost them. I mean, priorities, right? Again, you got people who don't have enough food to eat. You got food pantries all over the place. And by the way, the food pantry craze really went nuts about 3 years ago. Who was the president about 3 years ago? Nobody seemed to care all that much about inflation 2 or 3 years ago. Nobody talked about it, really. Everything was fine. Everything was great. So anyway, a few observations from the Neil Young situation. He says here, they've been detaining people who have green cards or visas, which is hideous and horrifying. Really? Why is it hideous and horrifying that they're detaining people to find out if they're actually here legally? They're detaining. Are they holding them? Are they putting them in jail? Anyway, I don't know what to make of this. It's just, if you care though, if you want to see the documentary produced by Daryl Hannah, Coastal hits theaters for one night only this Thursday. Tickets are on sale now. I bet you that's going to be a very low turnout for that. More importantly, though, if you're a Neil Young fan, Young's Love Earth Tour with his band, the Chrome Hearts, kicks off June 18th in Råtvik, Sweden. Yeah, kicks off in Sweden. And he's as soon as he gets to Sweden, he's going to start talking about Donald Trump, apparently. But if you want to wait for all of that stuff, you can catch Neil here in the United States. See, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm promoting Neil Young. Charlotte, North Carolina. That's a place I'm sure that will love to see Neil Young on August the 8th, wrapping up with a show at the Hollywood Bowl in his home turf on September 15th. Neil Young, still going strong. It's amazing. Neil Young and Daryl Hannah. I didn't see that. I didn't have that couple as an actual couple on my bingo card how many years ago when that all went down. But anyway, folks, a lot of stuff there. Kind of went all over the place. Neil Young, it is what it is, folks. We all just have to try to get along with each other. We all disagree on so many different things, but I can tell you this, right? It would be cool if the United States made stuff again. It really would be cool. And that's going to be a difficult transition. I'm not happy about that kind of transition, but it's kind of like we've been an addict for how many years, and we've now got to quit cold turkey, and it's It's not going to be easy, but I think we can do it. We supposedly put a man on the moon, right? Some people don't believe that anymore. Um, so supposedly we put a man on the moon. So I think we could do this. I think we can do it. Even if we didn't put a man on the moon, I think at this point we have to do it. God bless America. God bless the world. And even God bless Neil Young and Daryl Hannah.